This legislation is real progress, but more has to be done. The provision of this new legislation is going to save lives.
It will make a difference. It will save lives, but there's so much more to do.
It's a sentiment echoed across D.C. and here in the Chicago area after President Biden touted his gun safety legislation bill last week. But is it possible to get anything more done with the deadlocked Senate? I spoke with Congressman Mike Quigley, whose 5th district stretches from the city's north side to the western suburbs. And Congressman Mike Quigley joining me now from Washington, D.C. Congressman, appreciate your time as always.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So Highland Park, I mean, people still reeling from the tragedy that happened there on the 4th of July. Democrats, as a rule, and certainly people in the Highland Park and surrounding area want Congress to take more action. Senator John Cornyn said the other day, we're done. What's going to happen?
Oh, look, we passed a measure for the first time in decades that was important, but as important as it was, what was more important, what was not in that bill? Universal background checks and a ban on assault weapons. And weapons with, large magazines. So, it's unfortunate. I think he's probably correct unless the Senate changes somehow and the Democrats, retain control of the House. I don't see us doing anything dramatic to do those major things unless there's changes in the fall.
Probably why he said it. Let me reflect back on the elections. We just come off of that. We haven't talked since then. And, when you look at the results in Illinois, Mary Miller beating Rodney Davis, Darren Bailey getting the election. I mean, it looks as though the extremes were the victors because you can look at the very progressive candidates, too, like Delia Ramirez. What is your thought about what that says about politics in Illinois right now?
No, I don't know that it's just right now. I mean, you've been a student of this for a long time. The primaries tend to bring out folks who are more one extreme or another, and it's exactly what I think you saw. What struck me with this election, what was the most disappointing, was really two things. Abysmal turnout, which accentuated what you just raised, and the fact that nationwide over 100 candidates won in the primary, Republicans who believe that the election was stolen.
Does it all come out in the wash in November?
I used to say that if an extreme candidate wins a primary, they have less of a chance in the fall. I'm not sure about that. If you look at who I sit with on the House floor, the numbers, especially, I would say certainly on the Republican side of what you'd have to classify as extremist, are growing. So it concerns me. No one thought that Ms. Green would win when she won her primary. There she is. No one thought Miller would win again. And there she is. So I think it's unfortunately the path forward, and people need to be very concerned about turnout in primaries as a result.
Presidents are, typically at a lower point at midterm time, but President Biden's numbers are truly low. I mean, looking at the latest 538 polls, an approval rating of under 39%, disapproval over 56%. He's been underwater since August of 2021. If you're a Democrat running in Illinois or elsewhere, do you run with Biden? Do you run away with Biden or run away from Biden?
Yeah, and it sure depends on the district. And I think it depends on the issue. But let's remember a few things. He brought us back to a sense of normalcy, the rule of law. He passed the most important and largest infrastructure bill in our nation's history. He unified NATO against Putin, unemployment record lows. Obviously, the other thing that is so important in this is inflation. So obviously, it depends on the district and the issue. That's something that has to be addressed before November.
As we look to November, again, let's just follow history and play along with me that Republicans will likely take the House. Andy Biggs, I think it was, Congressman, recently issued a statement. I guess he just watched the 20,000 Mules movie or whatever. And he now, of course, calls for investigation of the January 6th commission. We hear a lot of that kind of talk. What is life like for you in a Republican-controlled Congress come the new year?
Yeah, I've been there, so I have a pretty good idea. I was ranking on certain subcommittees. And on the Intelligence Committee, I anticipate what they're saying is going to happen. They're going to open up, investigations into all things Biden and all things the Democratic Congress. So, I see one of my roles is to be the defense attorney again and try to educate the American people on where the truth lies.
A lot of speculation, as I'm sure you know, that Governor Pritzker thinking of running for president, or looks like he is based on his steps in Florida and New Hampshire. I guess my first question is, has he called you to talk about that? Tell me what he said. And number two, in case you didn't have that conversation, what's your view on a run for president by Governor Pritzker?
Yeah, I mean, first, a couple things. He has not reached out to me at this point in time. Just got through the primary. He's got a general to worry about. But you're right. He's doing all the things that people do when they're contemplating this sort of run. You know, my advice to him would be, let's see what President Biden does in the coming months. But if not, fortune favors the bold. Go for it. And I'd love to have a long conversation about how he sees us going forward.
Would you support him in a race if Biden would? I'm not sure he'd run if Biden stayed in, but if Biden stayed in, could you see shifting away from Biden?
No, look, you have to, for the reasons I stated earlier, I think Biden is not getting all the credit he deserves and the extraordinary challenge that he inherited post-Trump. So obviously I would stay with the president. After that, let's see.
I want to ask you about the mayor's race because you contemplated a run there. I know you did some polling that was public and you were doing fairly well in that, but you decided against it. Question is, are we seeing the pool of people now? Others will come in, but do you see any big names that would actually be a realistic threat to Mayor Lightfoot?
Yeah, I don't want to diminish those who are contemplating the run now. And everybody's a hero until it's time to pass your petitions.
Right.
And we'll see who's real. Do I think the field is set? No. Do I think there are other potential significant players who might be contemplating it? Yes. So we'll see how that plays out. I think those contemplating it will probably wait until after the primary.
And you are currently standing by your decision not to be running.
Sure. A lot of work to do here.
All right. That's true. Congressman, I appreciate your time so much. I know you've got votes to do. Thanks for calling us in between your votes. And we'll see you again when you're back in Chicago.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.